Hello there. Welcome to Dharma Science Radio, your one-stop shop for the most foundational and practical awareness around human design and analyzing body graphs that I can possibly deliver for you on this day. I'm excited for this one. My brother is somebody who really kind of introduced Jordan Peterson to me, and I've really appreciated the amount of intellectual rigor that he goes through in delivering his perspective. Now, the first thing I'd like to say is that, Jordan, if you happen to see this and you'd like it to taken down, let me know. I will definitely take this down if that's your preference. I would much rather have an open conversation with you about what I'm talking about here, because I feel this information is very important for all of us to be aware of so that it's an ordinary thing. So with that out of the way, let's dive right on in. So something I'd like to say first off, touching into something that's a bit more advanced and may or may not be correct depending upon the birth time. However, it's in resonance with myself because if this birth time is correct, he has a hopeful motivation that is driven by uncertainty. And now I happen to be a hopeful motivation that's driven by meditation. And I can see very clearly when I listen to Jordan, when he speaks, everything he says is so utterly guilt-ridden. Everything is so horribly negatively oriented. Everything is so wrapped around, this needs to be better, that needs to be better. This is all really terrible, you know? It really makes me think about that Christian proposition of original sin and born wrong, basically, like being born as a sinful thing, and you have to repent because you were born. It's like fundamentally you're on the wrong. And that's what it's like when your guilt is transferred. When you're a hopeful, motivated being, here to understand and recognize, wow, life's problems tend to sort themselves out when I allow my body to live its life. And yet when the mind is amplifying everything it possibly can, guilt takes over, it strips the intelligence from the individual. And well, in this case, it becomes very busy amplifying things that don't matter without ever knowing when enough is enough. And that's a very important theme for this kind of mind. So I'd like to take a step back into the foundations and into the practical. We're dealing with a 5-1 profile person. We're dealing with somebody who is paranoid. We're dealing with somebody who people expect things from. We're dealing with somebody who comes from an unconscious, solid foundation of intelligence. And when the mind is amplifying that intelligence, it's not actually intelligence, it's simply fear. You see, the first line, the first color, the first tone have to do with fear and security and establishing the solid foundation that becomes intelligence. However, when it is transferred, the actual gift and the joy of what is there is not available. It's rooted in the ignorance of what is possible. And so this 5-1 person has the ability to deliver powerful messages, and you might have noticed that if you listen to what he has to say, that he's really thoughtful about what he has to say, and he can be a little riled up at times. You know, emotional beings, we can get really riled up and kind of miss the point in our lack of clarity. And this is something that Jordan has to deal with an awful lot in his life. The fact that all of his emotional gates, you see this 36, the 6, the 55, and the 30, all of these gates are in the unconscious. So he probably doesn't identify with being an emotional person, and yet he is extraordinarily emotional. He is producing a powerful emotional wave that other people have to deal with. And because he is amplifying a lot of his energy by being very busy with things that don't matter without ever knowing when enough is enough, that tends to be a bitter energy. And, you know, it's not so much fun. It's not so much fun to deal with that. And yet he's a 36-55. So he's always moving on to the next step. He's always finding something he can let go of and try something new. This is called the jack of all trades. These are people that go into crisis experiences and they learn something new, they figure out how to communicate it, and they move on to the next thing. They're very interested in trying all kinds of different things out and becoming a jack of all trades, yet master of none. And for him, that came down to being an orator, being a communicator. And as you can see from this defined throat with 1, 2, 3 channels and an extra 45th gate hanging off of that throat, we're dealing with a very powerful communication process. This 1762 is a channel of acceptance. 17 is the gate of opinions, 62 is the gate of details. So when you take opinions of logic and you put them together with the details of logic, you find the design of an organized being. You find somebody who can accept the way things are because they have opinions about details, and both of those are consistent, and it forms acceptance. Down here in the 1333, this 33 is all about retreat and making sense of things that in the 13 are the secrets that are not necessarily spoken. And it forms the channel of the prodigal. This is somebody who can quite literally make sense of what is going on by retreating into their own world, contemplating what is going on, and then giving an output that can quite literally have a intergenerational impact. This is like the grandmother or the grandfather that shares wisdom with their grandchildren that then they carry forward for the rest of their lives. And so there's a deep beauty that's capable here. And if he were to trust the fact that he knows what he's talking about and he can see very sharply, and if he waits for emotional clarity, he can say something really valuable. However, the tendency is, if you're an emotional person and you have an undefined root, then you need to be very busy. I need to be very busy. I don't have time to wait. I don't have time to be patient. Because the mind is going down in there in that undefined center and getting wrapped up around this 19 about the needs of life, the fundamental needs, the need to be touched, the need to have shelter, the need to have food, the need to be a part of a bigger picture. It's very tribal, very foundational for our survival. And yet when the mind goes in there and it starts amplifying things, it's just busy, 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 busy for the sake of it, without ever knowing when enough is enough, because this 29th gate is all about saying yes. It's called the abysmal, the deep within the deep within the deep within the deep. It is the commitment, the willingness to make commitments that can, with the 46 on the other end, push upward towards the greatest heavens and really be a channel of serendipity wherein there is success where others fail and yet failure where others succeed. It's my personal favorite channel in the entire body graph. I think it is so beautiful, that notion of failing where others succeed and succeeding where others fail. There's something about that that encourages differentiation that I really love. And yet he doesn't have the whole channel. He simply has that pressure to say yes, or perhaps even the pressure to say no, especially paired with this 40th gate in his ego center. This is the gate of denial. This is the gate of, nope, not doing that. No way. Move on. Get out of here. I'm not using my energy that way. I need to rest. I need to do whatever else. And when you're dealing with a person with this gate, you got to recognize the other half of it, the harmonic gate, is the 37. And what does the 37 do? Well, you know, it smooches you over. It's ready to give a good massage to the ego. I know you said no, but what if I do this? I know you said no, but what about that? I know you said no, but what about this other thing? And so that ability to massage and to work the ego, even though it says no, that doesn't mean no forever. That's not how any of this works. Everything is over time. You know, as Uranian-ruled vehicles with these 9 chakras, these 9 centers, life is stretched out. Life is unusual. Life is not how it used to be. And so if you're around somebody with a 40th gate, understand, when they say no, it does not mean no forever. It's simply no, right now. And if you give them a good massage, if you work their ego and please them in that way, you're much more likely to get their yes. Because they need to be massaged. It's the nature of the ego. It needs its reward. It needs its rest.
The biggest problem I was having was getting my head wrapped around all of the content and all of the information held within the human design system. Ian really made it simple for me to engage my curiosity for one, but made it approachable enough to where I felt like I could immediately get value out of the conversation and immediately start applying things to my day-to-day life where it didn't seem like some big puzzle I had to solve. It was an immediate solution to something that I was dealing with in my life. How am I going to apply this with any sense of reality? And he made it so simple and so easy that I have now been on another year and a half since that first meeting with him and my first introduction into human design. And it has really given my overall life experience and the quality of my conscious experience a great boost, and overall something I would highly recommend to anyone else that's early on in their years or even months sometimes, like I was at human design.
I've been following Ian for about a year now, and I got the chance to work with him recently. The way that his knowledge of human design expands when you're in his presence to fit what you need exactly is something that is a joy to work with and a joy to see live in person.
Oh my gosh, this session was so unique because Ian really made it feel like I didn't have to worry about expectations. I didn't have to have a certain outcome be a certain way, and really helped me understand that I could just kind of ease my way into this. And he was so conversational about it that it felt like I looked up and the time had gone so quickly that I wasn't expecting it to be as much value as it was for as easy as it felt.
I definitely recommend getting a reading, getting a chance to work with Ian. He's one of the kindest souls I've met and has a really firm grasp on the information in human design. Definitely recommend.
I would recommend working with Ian for anyone that is wanting to have someone that will be both there to nurture your curiosity about human design and the fun things that you can explore about it, but also will challenge you and push you in a direction that will get you up and moving and using it in your real life. I think more than anything else, if you want to not just mentally know this system, if you want to understand how to apply it and use it and see immediate results, Ian is the person I would recommend for that. I think it is important for people to remember that this is an experiment. It is not something that you can try without trying. Like can't get the flavor of something unless you've chewed it up and swallowed it, right? And this is one of those things where Ian does such a wonderful job of making each thing that you're experiencing understandable and allows you to apply it with repetition. So it's not just a one-time thing. You learn how to build really good habits and how to build really good ways to honor your own authority in your own life. And from there, he lets you go and then you can fly. It's pretty remarkable how well he sets up my overall experience within human design for the purpose of changing my life, which it really did.
And so another theme about this is that we're dealing with a split definition profile. So these open centers are not actually the most predominant theme of the not self mind. These open centers are more of a background flavor for what is actually most important. And what is actually most important? Well, it's the hanging gates that bridge the split. So in this case, I see a few very quickly. I see the 21 and I see the 37. And there's also the 16th gate over here. So the first primary function this mind is looking for when it's amplifying and losing intelligence, trying to control the body, is that Jordan needs control. He needs to feel like he's in control of the situation. He needs to feel like he's kind. He needs to feel like he's full of mercy, that he has the values of a genuine father, that he can really care. And he needs to feel like he has the skills. He needs to feel like he can identify with something that is valuable. And yet he's not here to be the experimenter who takes control with his kindness. When he tries to identify with something new and take control with his kindness, what he's doing is he's being very busy amplifying the energy of something that doesn't matter without ever knowing when enough is enough. That's what it's like when his mind Starts going off on tangents. Oh, I wasn't nice enough. Oh, I didn't take control in the right way. I just didn't do the experiment right. I just didn't do it right. You see, this is a simple split definition. When you have a simple split, it means a single gate could bridge the split. You see over here, there's a 2644 defining the ego to the spleen. There's somebody with the design of a transmitter. Jordan Peterson has a message to say. You might have heard it before. He's very determined to speak to you personally because he speaks to your unconscious. He speaks to your survival instincts, your spleen itself. And yet that's cut off from his authority. His authority is emotional. He needs to wait for clarity, not simply get riled up in the classroom and yell at kids because he thinks he knows what he's talking about. You see, with a defined ajna, he can be certain about it. He's got the details to back it up. He's taken the time with this 1333 to process the information. Not only that, with the 3536, he's been through direct experiences and he's moved on from them about the details from which he speaks. So he has every right to be certain. He has his own construct in his mind that he's working with and he's sharing with others. And yet the thing is, if you really listen, you might notice this need to be kind, this need to take control, and this need to identify with something skillfully that takes over the mind, that takes over the life. And the fact is, all of that roots into being busy about things that don't matter without knowing when enough is enough. You see, this open sacral center here is the most pervasive energy on the planet. The sacral center is really where the material world, the physicality, the life force energy really comes from, as far as I'm concerned, in the body graph. Down here in the root is the nature of the forms itself, which is actually part of the illusion. The fact that we can identify names and terms for things and then recognize that, oh, hey, this is a different form. A bird is different from a bee, which is different from a tree, which is different from you and me. And yet the life force energy animating all of those different forms comes from this sacral center. And so that's why when you don't have a fixed relationship with life force energy, you don't know when enough is enough, generally until it's too late. And yet he's a projector. If he waits for the invitation, all right, hold on here. I totally made a mistake. I was misreading this chart. You see, anytime you have a motor defined to the throat center, motors include the solar plexus, the ego center, the sacral center, and the root center. Anytime any of these four motors reach the throat through definition structure, then you're actually a manifestor if your sacral is undefined. And Jordan Peterson has the 3536, making him a manifestor. So he actually has a closed and repelling aura, and all he needs to do is trust the impulse from within over time in order to see how to inform other people of what his impact is, of what he's about to do. This could also explain some of the controversy he has experienced in the public eye. The manifestor, with its closed and repelling aura, people don't necessarily feel like they can get close to him. There is always a sense of distance that's involved there. There's this sense that you cannot penetrate into the core of what he is. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And that can result in anger. And if he trusts the fact that he can say no, and it doesn't mean no forever, it simply means right now, I need to wait for clarity, I need to have patience. Ask me again next week, see how I feel then. And if you keep trying, you can get through to him, or to other people with similar configurations. He has a powerful G center after all. His body, all these G center gates are also unconscious. Interesting how that works. 2 energy centers where the only activations are in the unconscious. So he might not notice if he's only identified with his thinking mind and he's busy amplifying all kinds of things. He might not notice that he has a consistent sense of direction in his life. He might not notice that he's a powerfully emotional defined being and other people have to deal with those emotions. He might simply think he's this logical thing with something to say because he cares. And he's a kind, controlling, experimental father figure. He's willing to try out all these different things that can allow him to finally take control and be kind in a way that is not enabling, kind in a way that supports positive growth. And yet when he's motivated by guilt to try and fix everything in amplified transference, it doesn't come out that way and it doesn't land that way. If only he'd wait for emotional clarity. And so that's all I have for Jordan Peterson at this moment. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, feel free to let me know down below what you think, what you feel. If there's anybody else you'd like me to do a reading for, any other big public figure, let me know. And yeah, hope you're having a wonderful day. Take care. Bye for now. If you have enjoyed the show and would like to learn more about how all of this applies specifically to you, then kindly refer to the link in this video's description, Private Consultation. Here, we can dive into all of the details together in a recorded call. May your signature vibration of satisfaction, success, peace, and surprise find you in a good way.